Welcome. Today we're jumping into a huge shift happening in the business world, the idea that a company can actually have a conscience. And this isn't just some feel-good slogan, it's a real, fundamental change that's rewriting the rules for success. So that leads us right to the big question, doesn't it? Can a company truly do good in the world, and at the same time, do well financially? For a long, long time, the common thinking was, no way, you had to pick one. But that old mindset, it's pretty much on its way out. In today's interconnected world, being ethical and sustainable is no longer just a nice to have. For any company that wants to stick around for the long haul, it's become an absolute must. Okay, so we hear the words ethical and sustainable thrown around all the time, right? They can almost start to sound like buzzwords. So before we go any further, let's get clear on what these terms really mean when we're talking about business. A great way to think about it is like two sides of the very same coin. On one side, you've got ethical business. This is all about people. It's about fairness, being open and honest, and respecting human rights. Then, on the other side, there's sustainability. And that's all about the planet and its resources, reducing your environmental footprint and actually helping communities to thrive. But what does that look like in the real world? Well, this isn't just some abstract idea. We're talking about real, concrete actions. Things like switching to green technologies, actively working to lower carbon emissions, and this is a huge one, making absolutely sure your supply chain is clean, with no exploitation or child labor. All right, so we know what we're talking about now, but why has this become such a big deal right now? Let's dig into what's driving this change from being a niche little idea to something businesses can't ignore. And here's the thing, this shift isn't just about morality. It's actually incredibly smart business. When you operate ethically, it makes your brand look great, it builds real, lasting trust with your customers, and it attracts a whole new kind of investor, people who want their money to make a positive difference. It's a true competitive advantage. So what it really all comes down to is this balancing act. The challenge for companies today is figuring out how to make a profit while also being responsible to people and the planet. It's a tricky balance for sure, but it's essential. Okay, that's all great in theory. But how does this actually play out in the real world? Let's take a look at a major company that has put these ideas right at the very center of everything they do. And it's important to remember, companies aren't just making this up as they go. There are actually established roadmaps out there, like the UN Global Compact, that give companies a clear guide on how to operate responsibly. A fantastic example of this is the consumer goods giant Unilever. Their sustainable living plan isn't some side project or a separate department. No, it's completely woven into the fabric of their global operations, from where they get their materials to their impact on the environment. So let's break down their blueprint for a sec. First, they made sustainability a plan for the entire company. Second, they got really serious about ethical sourcing. Third, they put fair trade practices into action all along their supply chain. And finally, they took real steps to certify key stuff, like making sure their palm oil comes from sustainable sources. It just goes to show how a massive company can actually make this happen. Okay, so we've gone through the what, the why, and even a real-world how. So what's the big takeaway from all of this? What's the main point? It's simple, really. Being ethical and being profitable, they aren't enemies. They're not mutually exclusive. As companies like Unilever are showing us, these two things can and absolutely do coexist. In fact, in today's world, doing good has become one of the best ways to do well. And that leaves us with one final thought. This massive change isn't just up to the CEOs in the boardroom. It's really driven by all of us. So whether you're a consumer picking a product off the shelf, an employee helping shape your company's culture, or an investor deciding where your money goes, the real question is, how will you help champion this change?